Okay, Shivam, everyone. And I love the gathering today. It's so bright and colorful. And happy Kannada Rajyotsava to everybody. Welcome. So, before we begin, we'll start with a prayer and then start our session. Okay. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Once again, welcome everybody. And I see that this is going to be a grand session. After all, it is named after Navratri. So whenever Devi Ma comes, she comes with all the glory and all the dhamaka that she can bring. So there are a lot of background noises probably from my end. So this is a busy area. I request all of you to ignore that. And so where do we begin? I see that there are a lot of people who are my generation, probably younger, and there are some senior citizens as well. So all of you come with a lot of experience, right? So the first question that I would like to ask all of you is, when children go to preschool or children in their early childhood, so what are they taught? When I mean children in early childhood, I mean somewhere around 2.5, 3 to up to 6 years of age before they reach their first grade or first standard. So what is it that you have observed, whether it is with your children or your neighborhood or your cousins, whoever that is? So please raise your hand so that you can answer, or you can type it in the chat box as well. What is it that children in this age group are taught? A for apple, mostly rhymes. Okay. Alphabets, rhymes. B for ball. Yes, after A for apple, B for ball has to come. Phonics, Jack and Jill. Yes, they all come under rhymes. Any other answers? Okay. What is this? 1 second. So colors, shapes, shlokas, poems, small stories, parts of the body. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Sensory, like touch and feel. English and 1, 2, 3. So there are stories again. Okay. Good. So this is in general that is covered. Prayers. Yeah, where Sujitji went, probably they teach prayers. Our Father in heaven. Okay. So again, that comes as prayers. And yes, lot of play is involved in this age group when children go to the school, right? Emotional, physical development. Yes, we must appreciate the preschools of today compared to our generation. I think they are doing a much better job when it comes to whether it is sensorial learning, whether it is emotional development, and whether it is some extracurricular activities which probably we were not taught when we were young and we went to preschools, right? So with that, I just want you to keep all this in your mind, and then we will progress and see what we have to offer today. The screen is up, Vidyama. Yeah, so Bala Navami is about creating enriching experiences. Preschool, as all of you have mentioned, covers a lot of experiential learning for children. Writing and reading, yes, but it is mostly about experiential learning. And by experiential learning, what I mean is that you do something, you do an activity, you listen to a story, or you play some games and learn from the experience of doing that thing, whether it is reciting a rhyme or listening to a story. Coming to the curriculum of preschools, all of you have mentioned that it is about rhymes, stories, toys, using toys, some reading books. There could be prayers, there could be emotional development, and lot of other such activities. Now, today, if you see, whether it is the NEP, the current NEP that was released in 2020, whether it is World Health Organization, World Bank, UNICEF, and every country in the world is talking about early childhood care and education. Why is that? Why so much of importance has come to this? Earlier, it was like, okay, going to school is right of every child, and that school started from first standard. But that has shifted now to early childhood. But what about the curriculum? Don't you see there is a shift? But when it comes to curriculum, probably what was taught in first standard is now being taught at pre-KG levels. Don't you observe that? Now, coming to the question of why WHO is interested. Of WHO, of course, because it's World Health Organization. Education does help a child grow. World Bank, now that's a question which is wonderstruck. It wonderstruck me as to why World Bank is interested in early childhood care and education. UNICEF, of course, again, it works with children. NEP is our national education policy. Now we'll see. There is this document that was released by, I request everybody not to scribble around on the screen. Yeah. So nurturing care for early childhood development. Now, this was a document that was brought forth by WHO and in collaboration with UNICEF, World Bank, many other such important organizations of United Nations. And there were so many, almost all the countries of the world were signatories to this document, that they are in agreement with what nurturing care has to offer. And what it says is one of the best ways a country can boost shared prosperity, promote inclusive economic growth, expand equitable opportunity, and end extreme poverty. So, what is the best way? The answer is early childhood. Invest in early childhood. Investing in early childhood development is good for everyone. Governments, businesses, communities, parents, caregivers, and most of all, the children who are the stakeholders in it. And it is the right thing to do, helping every child realize that it has a right to survive and thrive. If you see the subtitle, it talks about a framework for helping children survive, thrive, transform health and human potential. So, early childhood is not just about going to school and learning, but it is thriving, transforming their health, and immensely focuses on the human potential. Why is that so? This is a very famous model by Mr. James Heckman, and this is the model which has been quoted in all of these documents, including the NEP. And if you take the curriculum framework also, it is this model of James Heckman that has been used. What it says is that if you see on the x-axis at the bottom, it is the age of the child, and on the y-axis on your left side is the return of investment. So every dollar, every rupee invested in the prenatal is even before the child is born in the womb, even before the child is conceived in the preconception stages. If you see, the return on investment is really high, and it exponentially decreases as we go towards the school age and the job training. In fact, if you invest 1 rupee in early childhood, the returns are as high as 13 rupees. Can you calculate the percentage? How much return you get on investing in early childhood? This could be not just education, it could be health also, it could be training also, and various other aspects. Versus if you invest in the school age, that is above 6-7 years of age, the return drastically exponentially decreases, and it comes around 5 rupees, 6 rupees. If you go post school, there was a trend that you go to finishing school after your college and high school and all of that. If you invest there, then it will probably not even give back 1 rupee for every 1 rupee invested. right? And that is the vested interest of even World Bank and every other country in the world. If this is the case, then why do you think there are so many curriculums that are followed? There doesn't seem to be any standard of, what has to be taught in the early childhood. There is no fixed textbook that we see in ICSE or CBSE, or there is no other board that talks about the early childhood. Have you heard of any boards? No? Do you think there are guidelines given for early childhood? If everybody is interested in this, everybody has so many return on investments on this, do you think there are guidelines? There must be, right? Every country gives guidelines for early childhood education. But why are they not implemented is a question we'll answer later. But NCERT, which is the National Council of Educational Research and Training, part of our country, is the one that gives guidelines for early childhood development as well. And since they are the research organization, they take in the concepts, the ideas, and all the methodologies and pedagogies used around the world, come up with what is most suitable for an Indian child, and frame the curriculum as per that, design the textbooks as per that. And coming to our country, which is so diverse, if you see the textbooks, it caters to children from every level, every society, every cultural background, right? Now, what guidelines do they issue for early childhood? What NCERT talks about early childhood is, it is not a syllabus bound program for teaching 3 hours, nor a song and rhyme and go home approach. When all of you mentioned, it was about ABCs, it was about rhymes, but NCERT is telling no, that's not it. It is a balanced play and activity based program which provides a stimulating environment for the language, intellectual, social, emotional, and physical development of the child. Right? So 3 hours could be there, could not be there, but what is essential is that these domains are focused on. It is not a teacher-centered program that follows formal classroom approach as in class. If you go to a preschool and if you find it just like a 5th standard classroom, then that it is not, is what NCERT is telling. It is a child-centered program catering to individual children's learning and emotional needs through individual, small and large group activities and one-to-one communication. We cannot expect children in their early childhood to sit in a class of 30 and listen to the teacher like an 8th standard child would do. It is not a program for formally teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is to be done in primary. This is something which we all should understand. This reading, writing, and arithmetic need to be taught in primary is the guidelines that have been issued by the research organization of our country. Lays the foundation for the development of reading, writing, and number work. So here is the time where the foundational basics are given, not the reading, writing skills. Not a downward extension of the primary grades. As I mentioned before, it should not be like, what we studied in 1st standard is not something that needs to be given to a child who is 3 years age right now. We started writing ABCs much later in our life and all of us seem to do well. A school readiness program which readies children for learning to read, write, and do arithmetic later in life. Now is the time to prepare their minds, to prepare them to understand a language. This is the time where you give them the concepts of how to think, how to develop their mind. Not a program which demands unquestioning obedience or exercise strict classroom discipline. Let us take it for granted. Let us take it in written words that, no child who is less than 6 years old will sit in a class disciplined with back straight, folded hands and finger on the lips. That is not going to happen. So do not impose that on children in this age group. A program which indirectly promotes self-control and thereby inner discipline in children through interactions. Inner discipline. Discipline is not something that needs to come from the teacher, but it has to be driven by the child. Not a program to conduct tests to know how children are learning and developing. I have seen children go to tuitions when they are in LKG so that they get good marks in their LKG final exams. Very sorry to say to all the parents who do that to their children, you're not supposed to do that. And these are strict guidelines by our government. Now to implement, now this is a very good understanding, right? You give the foundations, you give stimulating environment, you ready the child for higher studies. So how do we do it? Is the question. In our country, Bharata, we have had the Gurukulam system of learning and educating. In our system, we consider all of this, and it is a very holistic approach. It does not consider that a child is a blank slate on which anything could be written, but it considers that a child is like a scratch card. Everything is hidden within the layer of ignorance. It is up to the educator, the parents to peel that layer one by one so that they realize that they are all knowledge. And this science of Gurukulam gives us precise guidelines, precise sciences on how to approach education, not just for children in their early childhood, but education in the womb, education in the childhood, in teenage. Beyond that, even for a person in late 60s or 70s, Gurukulam sciences give you what exactly that person needs to learn, right? And to teach a child, what we need to first of all understand is that what really is education. And when we are educating, is it just the mind that we are educating? Is it just the intellectual quotient that needs to be harnessed and needs to be given lot of importance, or is there something more to it? People did mention emotional learning. Yes. What about the physical growth? Does that not come as a part of education? Shouldn't we not be educated to be more immune to diseases? Right? So, to understand how to educate a child, what is required is for us, whether it is parents or for the teachers or educators, or in whichever way you're involved with the child, it becomes essential for us to understand what is the holistic construct of the child. And when we understand the construct of the child, layer by layer, when we know what the child is made up of and what kind of education does each layer require, is when we become successful educators. Now, coming to this, a lot of people have been a part of our Dakshinas, our Know Your Child, or Story of Me. All these sessions did cover a good part of this, in fact, in detail. So it will be a repeat for you, but it will be a good revision because we are taking it up with a very fun analogy. So before we begin that, I would like to ask all of you, when you say me or when you say my child, what do you define your child as? If I say, Suhasini ji, what makes you you? You can type in your answers, everybody. This is an open question for everybody. When I say Ratna ji, what makes Ratna ji, you know, or Shri Priya ji? If I think of Shri Priya ji, what all comes under Shri Priya ji? If I take a car, for example, we know car has got a body, it's got steering wheel, it's got wheels, it's got gear system, petrol tanks, all of that. So what about human beings? Universe? My experiences make me me. What else makes you you? My body, my emotions, my consciousness. Five layers. Okay. So I'm so proud of all the Gurukulam parents. You know all the right answers. My emotions, my personality, yes. My unique personality or my nature makes me me. Thinking, feeling, action, yes. My thoughts, my feelings, and my actions are a part of me. So there's so many parts of me, right? When I say Vidyama, Vidyama is not just her body. So when I'm looking at a child, it is not just the child's body that I'm looking at. There's so much more to the child. And for that, to understand this better, we will look at a smartphone. A phone because it's smart, and also it is always in our hands. We will never forget this analogy for our life. Most of these topics are from the consciousness studies. All of you, at least most of you, have gone through them. But for others, each of these topics, when we talk about one topic here, is like one 8 hours class. What I'm doing is just consolidating it together so that you have a good introduction and a good base to understand what we are going to cover over the next 9 more days. Okay. So what does come to your mind when you look at a smartphone? First thing is like, oh wow, it's such a big phone, what a beautiful screen, or this is the color of my phone, this is the accessory using which I have decorated my phone. It's the appearance. That is our physical body. When I look at Archana ji, first thing I notice is that, okay, she is like 5 feet 3 inches tall, she's wearing a black color t-shirt today. First thing, whenever I look at somebody, it is always the body. It is the body that defines us and gives us who we are. If we had no body, then who do I address Vidyama as, right? I don't have anybody to give that physical introduction to. And what is also there is, it has got a keypad, it has got those volume buttons, it has got the power button, you can swipe the screens, and all these are the inputs for the mobile phone. I remember studying in my school, right? What are the input devices of a computer? The keyboard, the mouse, and the pen, what was it called? That pen and all of that. So like that, our body too has got input devices using which it gets commands, and because of that command, something stirs inside us. And these are our sense organs. Our 5 sense organs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth as in the tongue, and the skin. So whenever I hear something, I get an information. Based on that, I will take an action. I might listen, I might just ignore. So these are the inputs, and as per that, something happens inside me. All of this comes as part of my physical body. And this part is the most explored part. All of us have studied in detail about this in our science textbooks. Doctors especially are pros in this because they study every nerve, every cell, and how it works, how everything comes together. And this needs no further explanations because it's very clear. It's so sensory to us, right? It is so available for our senses to study from, learn from, and understand from. Next layer we have, like our phone has a power source, which is its battery. We have a power source too that charges us and discharges us. Our phone needs charging. Otherwise, it will not work. The life of the phone is in the electricity. What about human beings then? We too have a battery. And when I say that I am exhausted at the end of the day, what really is getting exhausted in me? It is this life energy that is being exhausted. And I have to recharge it. There are ways in which you can recharge. For example, a person comes back from work after a hard day at work and listens to music. You are recharged. Something that you enjoy to do, something that you love to do, recharges you instantly. That is how the life energy of ourselves also keeps going up and down. The battery of the phone needs charging using that plug point, that electricity flows through it. Same way, we also can recharge ourselves. And there are different applications in the phone that consume different amounts of power. If you watch YouTube, it might consume different power. Whereas if you just listen to music on your music player without connecting to the internet, then it might consume very different power. Your phone will run for hours together that way. But if you're doing some browsing on the internet, which is consuming a lot of data along with a lot of energy, then it discharges faster. Similarly, in our life too, there are many activities that require very little charge or which consume very little power, whereas sometimes there are some actions or activities or thoughts that require a lot of energy. When we are angry, we feel very, very tired very, very fast. Whereas when I'm listening to music or when I'm dancing, even though it is a physically hectic act, but it will not make me feel tired. My body might ache, but my mind is refreshed, right? So this is the life energy that we human beings possess. And we are talking about this because our child too has got each of these layers. When we talk about the body, our child has a body. And when we talk about life energy, our child too has got an energy, but it doesn't seems to exhaust for some matter, for some reason. Then comes our screen. Our phone will not work. Today's phones will not work without the screen. We have so many apps on that screen. On the home screen, when we see, we keep the apps that are most useful for us, the phone dial, the WhatsApp, and your favorite apps, the camera, whichever you use very often, you place it on the home screen. And this screen of the phone is like the mind that we have inside us. Using the screen, we see what's happening in the phone, and using our mind, we see what's happening in our life. The screen of the phone is made up of pixels, right? Each pixel placed one beside the other. That light, that photon gives it that power, and that's how we are able to see what's happening. Same way, our mind too is made up of thoughts that are placed in a particular arrangement, and that is what gives us all these experiences. And we know what I am feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm doing just because of my mind screen. This is the active mind. However, our phone has side screens as well, where we place the apps that are not very used, not much used, frequently used apps, or it could be something like a Swiggy for me, which I will place on the third screen, which I don't use very often. It could be something else for you. So there is a passive part of us also, which has apps that are not very frequently used in our life. It could be like, hobbies, for example. We don't use our hobbies every day, but whenever we need, we have enough understanding, enough practice to bring them back and use it in our life, right? So that could be the passive mind. It also has lot of stored information, lot of patterns that require very fast calculation. For example, if I ask you what is 1 plus 1, you don't have to think, take out your book or count your fingers and say 1 plus 1 is 2. It comes instantaneously. Or if you are standing beside a pressure cooker which is hot and you come a little close to it, instinctively you move away from it, right? So all these informations which do not need too much thinking, which have to come instantaneously, are all placed in our passive mind. Then a phone, whatever phone it is, you have the best technology, you have the best brand of phone, you have the best data provider, but what if you don't have an operating system for the phone? Will that work? You may not see the operating system. By operating system, I mean like all of us use iOS, Android, Windows sometimes. So all of these are the operating system. Without an Android, what is the worth of your phone? You will not see that Android and function, right? You only see the apps on your screen. You see, while you're playing a game, you just see the game. But there is a program that is running in the background that makes this game run in front for you, right? So that is the operating system. And for human beings too, what we are on the outside, till the mind level, we can see, we can feel, we can think, we can experience, we can have others to notice that as well. But what is truly running us is our operating system, and that we call our subconscious. Like the operating system of the phone is made up of just codes, none of us will be able to find out what they are, okay? If we are not trained to write that code or understand that coding language, we will not understand what it is. It's just words and signals and symbols. Even for human beings, we are not given for experience. The subconscious is not given for us to see, notice, understand. It's just there. And 95, more than 95% of who I am is run by our subconscious. Whether it is the way I talk, my sound, the way I walk, my creativity, my health, my immunity, my how do I make relationships, what kind of thoughts I have, what kind of tendencies I have. What kind of choices I have is all determined by my subconscious itself. And it is a huge part of who I am, but it is not given to our experience. So that is subconscious. After that, let's give this a perspective. Let's put it all together. So we have the Anna, like how Suhasini ji very nicely put it up, Annamaya Kosha, as we call it. It is our body which takes in the data. Then we have the Mana, the mind, which shows who I am, what I use, what I think, what are my experiences. Then we have the Prana, my life force, which keeps me charged, which helps me discharge, which helps me move. Without the charge, the phone is off, it's dead, right? We call a phone is dead when its battery is low. Same way, whenever our prana is not there, if it is totally gone, that means we are dead, right? The prana is what decides whether I'm alive or not. That's why it's called the life force. Then the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the subconscious, it defines my capacity and my potential. When nurturing care document talks about human potential, they are talking about this potential of the human being. And then we have Anandamaya Kosha also. Now, what is this Anandamaya Kosha? Coming to my favorite part of Nyayas, okay? I just love the Nyayas because just by learning the Nyayas, you can learn everything about this world. I explain to children. I mean, I have to explain to children about subconscious. If I have to explain to children about what is Anandamaya Kosha, then I take help of our scriptures, okay? Kanaka Kundala Nyaya. What it means is that Kanaka is gold, Kundala is earring that you wear. So gold is available everywhere, and we use it to make different types of ornaments, whether it is earrings, necklace, bangles, mang tika, any ornament, right? We use gold. But every gold is the same. The gold which I wear in my ears is very same to the gold that I have in my bangles. The base, the foundation, the main component using which everything else is made is gold. Now that is the gold that is within me and you also. We might appear different. I could be a bangle, Suchitji could be a earring, Mamtama could be a necklace, but we all are made up of the same gold. So for our children, we did, I can't give them gold to make ornaments. So I gave them clay, and using which they were making different utensils, toys, and whatever they would like to make with it, because that also is the same. The clay is the same. You can make, you can frame it, you can give it any shape that you would like. So we are all like that gold, you know. And the value of who I am is the purity of gold that is within me, right? So that is the entire construct of a human being, all the 5 koshas put together. We differentiated each one of them, and now we will integrate to find out what else comes extra in us, okay? We will start this with how we took the analogy of smartphone. So we will go again with the analogy of smartphone to decode the story of me. I am who I am because of the story that I have, right? The story of me begins when? The story of the phone begins when? It begins when there is an idea that I want to make a phone. And during that idea stage, I can have any kind of idea, right? I could have a phone that is as tiny as an ant, or I could have a phone which is as big as a TV. I could have any capacity. I can give it any type of color, any type of apps, any kind of software, any kind of hardware. And that is the idea stage for human beings also. That is the preconception stage. At least 3 months before the child is even physically conceived, the child exists in the spirit realm. And it comes to our family, our house, our womb when we invite it. So that is the preconception stage. And that is the idea stage. It is like the seed, right? When you look at a seed, it appears so dry, don't know what is going to happen to this poor guy, God knows what, whether the plant will come out of it or not. But when it is put on the earth, given the right kind of nutrition, water, sunlight, it can sprout. The idea stage is that seed can sprout and an entire tree could come out of it. That is the potential of the idea stage. You can create any type of phone when you are in the idea stage. Everything is pure potential at that instance. Design stage of the phone is when I decide, okay, this is the software that I'm going to use. This is what my phone is going to have. This is the memory. This is the hardware that it will have. This is the metal that I'm going to use. Everything right from, how much battery it will consume, which apps will need what kind of configurations. All of that is in the design stage. Like we plan our house. Even before our house is constructed, we first have the plan. Without the plan, can we proceed? The plan tells us the blueprint, right, is during that plan stage. And my prenatal formation, the pregnancy, when I was in my mother's womb, when my child is in my womb, is when the design stage happens. Everything is determined there. What kind of relationships my child is going to have, what is the immunity my child is going to have, what kind of emotional strength my child is going to have, what kind of spirituality the child is going to have, how much creativity my child is going to have, everything, how much intellectual capacity my child is going to have is all determined in the pregnancy stage, in the prenatal formation of my child. And this is 9 months. So we have 3 months of preconception that we talked about, and then we have the 9 months of pregnancy. After that comes the most interesting phase in everybody's life. It's the infancy. And this is the time where the phone is kind of designed. The hardware is processed in the factory. It is building, not completely done. Lot of testing is happening on the hardware also. The software too is kind of ready. The programs are okay. It's come to almost 90% completion stage, but testing is going on. And they're simulating and seeing what all is working, what all is will work, whether it is compatible. So that is what happens in infancy for a child also. It is testing, it is observing and learning. When all this is happening, does it mean that there is no operating system in the child? Of course it is there. And a smart engineer or any sensible engineer is one who will take an operating system that was already built and then enhance its features. How stupid it will be of me if I start designing from the base, right? From the zero. It will take me years together to probably come to where we are today. So this child too has an operating system that was already working long time back. Now it is only enhancing it depending on what kind of programs and codes it receives during its pregnancy and infancy. And the world of an infant is really like that operating system. It only understands codes, it only understands formula, nothing else. The infant will not appreciate how beautiful you are, but it will know how many wrinkles are there on your face, what is the color. If you open a paint and choose a color, now each color has got a number, right? It has got a code, right? So that infant will not see red color, it will see the code of the red color. I think 00 is black. So zero, if you show black color to the infant, it will see 00. And using these codes is how it creates its world. It's really awesome to be an infant. And the best part of being an infant is that whatever experiences, whatever you have learned, whatever you have done during these 2.5 years of your life is like a compiled, compressed format of what your entire life is going to be in the future. When you purchase a phone, it comes with some basic settings, right? It has WhatsApp preloaded, it has calls and contacts preloaded. So that base is being built by the child in its infancy. And that's why if you see our samskaras too, right from the beginning, samskaras from our country, which our rishis have given, starts with Pumsavana. Actually, the invitation in the womb, I forgot, I'm not getting the Sanskrit word right now, but the second is Pumsavana, and third is Simantonayana, and so on, Jata Karma, Vidyarambha, and so on. The 9 samskaras out of the 16 samskaras of the human life, 9 of them are covered even before the child is 3 years of age. That is the amount of importance that is given, that is the amount of focus that has been given to this age of development in a child's life, because 90% of the development is already done by the child when it is by the age of 2.5 years of age. After this only comes the early childhood, which we are going to be talking about in detail from now onwards. This is when everything is built, hardware is ready, software is ready, but that does not mean that phone comes in my hand, right? There has to be a testing phase. There is a phase where the verification engineers drill the phone inside out, insert any kind of bug, think about all the issues that could go wrong with the phone and test completely. That is the early childhood in our life. So if you see your child, it will test all the patterns that it has developed so far. The screaming, the jumping, the tantrums, the happiness. What is the level with which my mother or father will break down is being tested in the early childhood. And it is the phase where the subconscious construct, the operating system is kind of completed. And this is the time where the conscious mind starts developing. Till then, what do we do then? So, yeah. Thank you for that. Garbhadana, correct. Invitation in the womb. So, till my conscious mind is developed, what do I do? When I'm constructing a house, I'm planning, I have started building it, but it's not ready. Where do I stay? I stay in a rented place. Same way, when the conscious mind of the child is not ready, it lives in a rented place. Who are the people available for renting now? The mind, that is the parent. That's why it is parent. So they pay rent and they stay and they use your mind and they are totally connected to your mind. Even if you saw in the picture that engineer who was working had connected that phone to an emulator and he was checking, right? The screen is not very clear of the child. So it borrows the screen of the testing computer itself. So whatever is happening inside the child can be seen on that testing computer itself. It can be seen on the parent's mind. And whatever the child thinks, does, experiences also comes from the parent. So they are completely entangled with each other. The mind of the child and the mind of the parent are totally in sync with each other. And if there is no parent, then whoever is closest to it, whether it is the caretaker, the grandparents, or the educator or teacher when it goes to school, they don't have a mind that can help them think on their own. They borrow the thoughts from others, they borrow ideas from others, they borrow everything from others, basically, whatever has to go in their mind. Right? So we have come up to this understanding. This is the complex being that we are going to be dealing with. And as we have understood before, this child is not just an ordinary being. From the preconception stage to its infancy up to 2.5 years of age, it has learned everything, every single thing from the parent. Whatever you know is all accessible to the child, whether it is your thoughts, whether it is your ancestors' thoughts, whether it is from where do you get all your tendencies, how are you going to react to situations, from where do you get these tendencies to react to these situations, which of your ancestors has reacted like this, how many times in the past have you done this, and what are the emotions attached with this action, this feeling, this thought is all accessible to this child who appears very tiny, very cute, very sweet. But this child can take you for a toss because he knows you inside out of the parent of who you are. And this child comes out of you, right? So it has seen who are you from within. It will not go by your expressions. And it is a sincere request for all the parents, do not go by what the child gives as its expressions also. It is not what the child is really showing that matters. Go to the depth and understand from where the child is thinking like that, from where this thought in the child is coming. So with this base, now let us go and understand what does the mind of a child look like, right? Since it is starting to build its mind, when is a good time to study about the mind? If you are teaching somebody about a house, how to build a house, how to construct it, then when is a good time? When the house is completely built or while somebody is constructing their house, right? So while we are constructing the house, we get an inside out view of what is happening, how to manage, how to balance everything, how to place brick by brick, layer by layer. So same way for a child also, when it is starting its construction of mind, is a very good time to teach it psychology. It is a very good time to teach the child thinking skills, reasoning skills, how to arrange the thoughts, how to facilitate thinking. What is the framework of my mind? What is the foundation on which my house is built? What is the foundation on which my mind is built? Right? So before we get into this, there are some vocabulary which I want all of you to go through to understand in detail. If these definitions are clear, then we will understand the construct of the mind also. So till now, I'm sure most of you have gone through most of our programs where we talk about all these stages in life, right? So I hope it was a good revision, and I hope all of you can relate to your children better. Coming to mind development and early childhood. To understand what has to be taught to a child, first of all, we should understand what knowledge the child needs, right? What is the knowledge that we are going to give our children? What is knowledge? Can somebody tell me what is knowledge? What do you think is knowledge? Something we know, yes? Just one second. Information, learning. Learning is not really knowledge. We'll come to that. Clarity about a concept or a thing. Knowing or not knowing, yeah, something that I don't know also becomes knowledge. Knowledge is awareness. And what? Yes. So basically, knowledge is bringing something to my awareness, whether I know or I don't know, is knowledge. Okay, simple definition of knowledge. Then what I think the next was, what is learning? So what is learning then? Is learning and knowledge one and the same? Facts, skills, knowing. So what is learning then? How do you define? When I learn something, how do I define that learning? Which we have experienced and know is knowledge, is what Sindhuji was trying to say, right? So how do you define learning? We want all our children to learn. So what does that mean? To understand the knowledge is learning. Knowing about new things, acquire knowledge, understanding things with clarity, learning more what we know. Learning is permanent. Yes. So in brief, if we can describe, learning is learning more about something that we already know. Okay. So knowing more about something that I already know. I have a knowledge. If I know more and more, if I am being aware of this knowledge more and more, then that becomes learning inside me. Okay. Then the next definition was, I think, wisdom. Yeah, intelligence. So what is intelligence then? If this is knowledge, if this is learning, then what is intelligence? Experience and wisdom. Yes, Ratnaji, you have raised your hand. You can unmute yourself. Capacity to learn fast is intelligence. Capability to understand and learn. Intelligence is the capacity to learn. Okay. I don't know, Ratnaji, what happened? What knowledge we use at what time is intelligence. Application of knowledge, inbuilt capability, timely using of learning, apply what is learned. Okay, so intelligence, inbuilt capacity to grasp and respond. There is something called as learning potential, okay, and there is something called as intelligence. what all of you, most of you are talking about is learning potential. My ability to grasp something, my ability, inbuilt capacity to grasp and respond, capacity to learn fast is all about the learning potential. Intelligence is not really that. Intelligence is sorting something, how to connect things together is intelligence. Now to understand this, and the next definition which was there was wisdom. Wisdom is applying knowledge. I already have something in my mind, I know about it, I have learned about it. Now for which situation, what knowledge will I apply is wisdom. Okay, so to put all of this into perspective, let's say we want to make a flower rangoli. Thoughts we implement using knowledge is intelligence, that is wisdom, Kavita ji. Intelligence is, yeah, with this example it should be clear. Okay, all of these have to be very clear because we should understand what is intelligence. When is my child being intelligent versus when my child is being wise, right? So that is something that we all need to know. If we have to make a flower rangoli, let's say, so first thing what I do is, what do I do? The first thing, if I have to make a flower rangoli, what should I do? A pukolam or a flower mandala. What is the first thing that all of you will do? Idea. Yes, of course, there has to be an idea. Idea of what I'm going to do and idea of what really is a flower rangoli I should have, right? Now that is knowledge, right? I need to have a knowledge. Get flowers, get materials. Yes, I should have a design. Yes. And then what do? I have the flowers now. I have all the materials. Then what do? I've collected all the information that I need. I have collected all the flowers, the design, the pattern is all set. Now what do? I execute. How do I execute? Let's say I've got jasmine flowers also, I've got roses also, I've got marigolds also, and so many other flowers I've got. So first thing, what do you do with all these? Sort, right? We should know which is marigold, which is rose, which is a genda, which is sunflower, probably a cauliflower also, because cauliflower is there. No, it's a flower, right? Now your intelligence comes where I should not use cauliflower in a rangoli is the intelligence that you have to use. That is the sorting that you need to do. That is where intelligence comes. Okay. So, oh wow, I'm going to make a rangoli with cauliflower. Awesome. But that will not become a flower rangoli. It will become vegetable rangoli. After this, what do? This is intelligence, right? And this is how I create my pattern. So intelligence is not learning. Intelligence is just sorting. You know, I have all the information with me. I segregate it, put it into proper places, and I know which is applicable for me right now. I take only that. So picking information is intelligence. Okay. And my wisdom is to understand that a cauliflower is not a flower. Okay. I know it is named cauliflower, but it is not a flower. Now that is the wisdom. All right. Clear? Any confusions here? Vidyama is smiling. So I'll tell you what happened when this Varma Lakshmi Puja and all would be there. Na? All this Lakshmi Puja during Shravana, we would go to the house and get that that vetle paku and all that, right? There was one auntie, and every time you go to her house, either she would, we generally give bananas or apples or oranges or guavas. These are generally used fruits. Now this auntie was very special. She would either give a lemon or a tomato. Come on, they are fruits, right? So that also good. And I would be so excited to go to her house to see whether I'm going to get a tomato or a lemon this time. So that is the intelligence also. Okay, so let's proceed now to understand some more. I know these are little definition oriented. You have to use a little bit of your conscious mind now. Arey, why did I share this? Sorry. Yes. So we come to learning potential versus learning capacity. All of you were talking about my power to grasp the knowledge. Now that is learning potential. and what is learning capacity then. For this now we'll take the example of eating potential versus eating capacity. I love to eat pani puri, and if I go to a pani puri stall, yes Vidyama, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Vidyama. Okay, good to go. Shall I continue? Okay, fine. So, yeah, eating capacity. If I go to a pani puri stall, I can eat 20, 30 pani puris in one shot. But that is my capacity to eat pani puri. But if you give me chapati, I will eat 1.5 chapati maximum. What does that indicate? You know, I have a capacity to eat a lot of pani puris, but my appetite is not really great. I eat very little food. So that is learning potential versus learning capacity. You know, I am superb at learning from a textbook, but if you give me a video, I will not be able to learn. Right? So that is the difference between learning capacity. I have the capacity to learn a lot using a textbook, but I don't have the potential to learn from everything else. When we talk about learning potential, this is something that is a subconscious thing, and you can teach. I think Nirama keeps quoting this, right? You can always teach, but the end result need not be learning. Learning is an occurrence. It is a subconscious thing. It is not in our conscious mind. And when this capacity, rather this potential is built in me, is in my golden period. When we spoke about the pregnancy, the infancy, and the preconception, that is my golden period. The first 1100 days of a human being is called golden period because that's where all these developments happen. The capacity that infants have to learn is much greater than any one of us. We can process like 40 signals per second using our conscious mind, whereas an infant can process millions of signals per second using its subconscious mind, right? So that is the potential of an infant, and that is where this learning potential is built in a human being. So in the early childhood, the children work with whatever learning potential they have built during their pregnancy. Each of these samskaras push that child and lead it to where it is right now. The kind of conception determines what kind of pregnancy it is going to be. The kind of pregnancy that happened during those 9 months is going to determine how the infancy is going to be, and how the infancy was determines how the entire life is going to be, right? But this learning potential is built during the golden period. So how much I will learn? If I give you a stone, then what all can you learn from it? Some person might say, oh, it's just a stone. Somebody might say it is from earth. Somebody might categorize it and say that, no, oh, this is not just any stone, it is an emerald. And this is the formula of it. This is how you can use it. This is how you can use in science experiments. This is how you can use it for healing and therapy. So that is the learning potential that we are talking about, right? Then I think the next definition was creating experiences versus building experiences. We have seen a lot of methodologies and lot of schools, lot of people, lot of homeschooling parents who give so much experiential learning to their children, isn't it? Activity-based learning, taking them to different places, giving them stories, giving them videos, giving them so many toys to play. These are what we call creating experience for the child. But what is the guarantee that with every experience that you give the child learns? Versus building an experience. Building an experience is something which is led by the child. Given an experience, the child should be able to build on it, learn from it, and create its own knowledge, construct its knowledge, create its own mandalas, if you understand what I mean. So that is experience building. What we are going to be doing over these 9 days is train ourselves to become efficient people to help children build their own experiences rather than create experiences for them. It's exactly like learning capacity versus learning potential. We are giving them the learning potential. We are giving them that empowerment to build their own experiences rather than give them the capacity to learn, that they can learn any which way, right? It is like the battery of a phone, right? Whatever you do, even if you keep overnight or 24 hours, how much will the phone charge? It will only charge 100%. How much is the capacity of your battery is what your phone will charge, right? So that is the capacity. How do we build this capacity now? Right? So that is what we are going to be talking about. How to develop this learning potential in the child so that more and more learning happens and the child is able to build on its experience with every single instance, with every, we all live in our minds, don't we? So, and our mind, the child's mind is building. So we help the child build its mind slowly and beautifully so that it can get experiences of a varied quality. We'll talk about what those are now. For this, let's understand what is a mind, what is the framework of the mind. If we should understand, right? If you are constructing a house, we should understand what is the area. I should not go and construct my house in somebody else's site, isn't it? I should measure my site, find out what are the dimensions, where should I add more soil, make it even. All of that, this preparation is needed to build a house, to start putting a foundation there. Same way, it is essential for us also to understand what is the area in which we can play with. And how do we build the best house? How do we build the best mind for the child? In fact, we can't build, the child builds it. How can we help the child build this amazing mind for itself? Okay, so how many of you are excited to know what really the mind of a child looks like, or anybody's mind for that matter? While constructing a house, we go to Vastu, right? We live in our house. And we also live in our, oh, I missed the slide. Okay, so before we go to the mind, let's understand this, okay? This is, I want everybody to watch the screen now. Observe carefully. On the left side, there is K1. K1 is the knowledge, okay? I have knowledge about something. And using this knowledge, I give an experience to the child. That is E1. E1 is the experience. That could be an activity, that could be a story, that could be a rhyme, that could be a visit somewhere. So all of these experiences I am giving the child. That is based on the knowledge K1. And because of this experience E1, the child learns something called as L1. It is the learning. Now this is an occurrence. Okay. Now this L1 should be related to the K1. That's why we have named it as K1 dash. It should be in relationship. It should be associated. It should be connected with the K1 that we initially set out with, right? Then only the cycle is complete. We always talk about cycles, right? The chakra is very important for us. Everything has to happen in a chakra. That is when the churning happens. When we give an experience, that experience should lead the child towards this churning so that more and more is learned about that K1. That was our intention, no? In the first place, to give learning about that K1. Along with this, there could be L2, L3, and so many infinite number of learnings could come out of this single experience. And because of that learning, there could be some other knowledge gained, K2, and some other experience also they might have, E2, and so on. But these are not related to K1, and hence there is no churning. They will emerge out, but these learnings, these experiences are not in sync with the spirit of the child. So they become boring for the child. They might show fun. They might show, okay, I'm trying to explore and all, but is the learning happening is a question that we have to ask. And these should lead the child to ask questions about that K2, about some other thing, some other concept. But these are not the main learning. This does not build an experience, a healthy mind for the child. So whenever we are thinking of experiential learning, always ensure that that L1 that is generated is in relationship with that K1. Now, how do we do that is a question we will answer over the few days. But remember that churning has to happen. The more and more we churn, the better we learn, the better knowledge we have, the more clarity we get. It's like that cow chewing its cud, right? Again and again, take as much juice as you can from whatever experience you have got. Now, that is what our focus is going to be over these 9 days. Now, coming to the mind. So, we all live in our houses. Our house, most people do follow Vastu. Some people don't believe in it. You know which side the door has to be, right? At least minimum that much they do, so that there is proper light and ventilation in the house, right? Apart from that, you know, kitchen has to be in this direction, master bedroom here, bathroom here. If not, then it is not a very good house for us to live in. There might not be good ventilation. There might not be good harnessing of the energies in the house. Same way, we live in our mind. Okay, right? That, you know, I am very poor. I don't have a big house. I don't have big car. But if I am a king or a queen in my mind, then my life is sorted. Similarly, you could be living in the largest bungalow in the world, but if your mind, if your thoughts, they are not really happy, or if they are not satisfactory to you, then what is the use of living in such a big house, right? We, after all, live in our mind. So it is essential for us to have our mind really neat and clean. Whether our house is neat and clean is secondary. But if the vastu of the mind is maintained well, is when all this light, wind, air, ventilation, all of that is beautifully given for the child. Mandala and mind, they are very closely associated, right? Mana, mandala, mind, mandala. So how the mandala is built is the same way a child's mind is built. First, there is that x-axis line. Then using a compass, we generally create the y-axis line at 90 degrees. And then at 45 degrees, we build the other lines. Why? How many directions do we have? 8 directions, right? So same way, our mind too has got 8 directions. What all is there in these directions? North, northeast, east, southeast. So we all know what these directions are. And each of those directions have got a presiding deity. That's what we study in Vastu also. And these concentric circles that you see is the framework. It's like we talked about that K1, right? On what base, on what foundation will all these learnings come? What are the experiences which we need to give will be based on these concentric circles. Now, this in our case, if you take spiritual learning, Gurukulam sciences, it is about what is my construct, totally about self-knowledge, what are thinking skills, what are reasoning skills, what is my subconscious construct, what are virtues, what are emotions. So all of that forms the base in our Gurukulam. But this could be anything. This could be probably you want to give knowledge about how the oceans work. Just a random example. Okay. And we have the Devatas, the deities who sit at each of these directions, right? On north is Kubera, and the Graha, the planet, there is the Buddha, Ishana, Guru, Indra, Surya, Agni, Shukra, Yama in the south, the Graha associated with it is Mangala, southwest is Niriti or Rakshasa, the Graha is the Chandra, Varuna, which is on the southwest, the Graha associated is Shani, Vayu on the northwest, and Rahu is the Graha associated. Now, coming to the Grahas. When we mean Grahas, if you have attended any of Babaji's sessions or the Dakshina, you know that these Grahas are not just planets, they are the intelligence with which we are built. They are the intelligences which operate on us. And if you look at Buddha, for example, he is the crystallized, complete human intelligence that is up in the sky, guiding us with the intelligence of Buddha. What is the intelligence of Buddha? Buddha is associated with the verbal intelligence. You would have all heard about this concept of multiple intelligences, right? There are 8 multiple intelligences using which a human being operates. right? So like that, our grahas, when you go to a Navagraha temple, it is these intelligences that we are bowing down to. One by one, when we take it up, Surya, sun, the Sunday, is dedicated towards rhythmic intelligence. Rhythmic intelligence, the knowledge of rhythm, the tala, that is rhythmic intelligence. Surya comes day in and day out in a rhythm, right? So that is the intelligence that we can learn from Surya. Now, these are also deities who come as part of passive subconscious. Let's not get into that. We'll just focus on the intelligences as of now. That will help us with the mind framework. Then comes Chandra, Somavara, Monday, Moon Day. Chandra is always that loving, darling, caring, who also called lunar and lunatic, is the one presiding over our mind and our emotional intelligence, right? When we talk about emotional intelligence, it is always the Chandra Graha that comes into play. Then we have Mangala. Mangala is always in red because this graha is the graha that represents kinetic intelligence, that energy that will help me push and move forward, right? So that is Mangala graha. Any activities that are based on body intelligence, kinetic intelligence, energy based, high energy activities are all Mangala based activities. Buddha, we just spoke about it, is the verbal intelligence. Verbal intelligence is not just verbal communication intelligence, but all the intelligence that we need to survive in this society. For transactional basis, whatever intelligence we need is given by Buddha. Guru, Guru is the spiritual intelligence. Now we are talking about the mind of a child. Mind does not have a body. You cannot feel it sensorially. You can experience it, but you cannot touch it. You cannot hear sounds of it, right? That is the spiritual part of me. Sciences that are higher than just the physical sciences are the spiritual sciences, and Guru is responsible for that kind of an intelligence. Then comes Shukra. Shukra is the graha that is responsible for the scientific intelligence, also the artistic intelligence. So the art and science comes from Shukra. He is so precise. When we hear Babaji speak about this, no, I just love it. He gives them such a beautiful form and shape and definition. I will not be able to do that, but I can talk about how to design activities for these. Okay. And then Shani. Shani is our karyakarta, the karmakarta, who will ensure that there is discipline in your life. Whatever karma you carry in your life has to be fulfilled, is his role, his job, the disciplinarian, the strict person, but much essential in our life. After Shani, we have Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is expansive in nature, and so it is interpersonal intelligence, the intelligence with which I expand myself by interacting with others, by interacting with society, by interacting with my cousins, family, all of that. So that is my interpersonal intelligence. Learning from others is what Rahu teaches us. And then there is Ketu. Ketu is for intrapersonal intelligence, something that comes closer, something that is very me, inside me. So expansion and compression. So Rahu and Ketu are those thriving forces, right? So Ketu is the one that gives me intrapersonal intelligence. So when we talk about a mind, all of these intelligences are there. So when there is a knowledge, if we are talking about knowledge about the ocean, then it makes sense only if we are able to give complete understanding, complete experience, a holistic experience which covers all these dimensions. What if I only learn about the science of it? What about the other things then, other aspects? There is science of ocean, but what about the beauty of the ocean? What about the rhythm of the ocean? Shouldn't that be included? When we are complete beings, we look for completeness in everything, right? So an experience is complete only when all these aspects, all these intelligences are covered. It's like, I am standing in Bangalore right now and the sun is setting for me. But if I go towards Sujitji's place in Japan, it's already set. I don't know what time it is for Sujitji, but it is already set. And if I say, no, Sujitji, the sun is still setting, it is still bright here. What are you saying? It's not night. Then who is right, who is wrong? If I ask an American, what is the time, Ramya ji, in US probably right now? 12 hours, let's say. It's early morning, right? Sun has not yet risen. That is also dark. Or some places, the sun might be just rising. That is also correct. But if I say, if I'm adamant and if I'm rigid to say that, oh no, it is sunset time, it is 5 o'clock. And the whole equation changes if you go at the poles. At poles, it's a totally different story, right? Sometimes there are only days, sometimes there are only nights. If you go to Australia, the seasons change. If you go to Canada, something else might happen, right? If I give only one perspective to the child, it's like getting the child rigid towards my own understanding of what this is. If the child has to understand that Earth is spherical, at each instant, the sun might be at the same place, but every country on the Earth experiences a different type of climate, different type of light, different type of energy, then that is when I am giving the holistic perspective of the child. What we are doing here is trying to give that holistic perspective of the entire knowledge series. Okay, now coming to the other Devatas that were there, the Indra, Varuna and all, what they do in the mind, these were the intelligences that were associated in the mind. Now let's see what those do. Okay, the Devatas. Indra is for sensorial learning. Everything that I learn from my senses is the Indra. Indra was in which direction? He was on the north side, right? So the thoughts in my mind that come from the north are due to the sensorial learning. Or rather, when I learn sensorially, then which part of my mind will these thoughts be placed? Are the north side. So in our mind, if you have seen mandala, have you seen, everybody has seen a mandala, right? You know what is basic mandala, no? It has 8 directions like this, right? And if you have seen a rangoli, something similar, right? It is symmetrical on so many other directions. So what, if I have a thought is like, if you are making a mandala with, let's say, some shapes, okay, triangles, circles and squares. So if I have to place these shapes in the mandala, these shapes are my thoughts. So if I have sensorial learning, where do these shapes go and fit? They fit in the north, where our Indra resides. Okay, getting it, kind of understanding it, right? But my mandala is incomplete because I have given sensorial learning. What about the other things? The mandala is complete only when all the 8 directions are covered, right? And symmetrically, about the same knowledge. It's not something about, if I'm talking about oceans, I should not be giving knowledge about trees there, right? About the oceans, I'm creating my mandala. So let the thoughts be symmetrical and in sync with the ocean itself, the knowledge of the ocean itself. So Indra helps in putting the thoughts properly up in the north. Clear? Then comes Ishana. Ishana is my divinity, connection to my passive subconscious. For people who have attended OLETP or people who have done Dakshina, understand what is passive subconscious, right? That part of me where there are patterns for the entire universe. It is like I have patterns in my passive subconscious to become a stone also, to become a planet also. For every character, for every being in the universe, the patterns are given in my passive subconscious. And we call it divinity because this is where the devatas lie. If you're talking about Ma Saraswati, if you're talking about Lord Indra, Varuna, these are all my passive subconscious connections. Okay. Then comes Kubera. Kubera is for abundance and creativity. If my child has to be creative, and if given these shapes, if my child comes up with something creative, given the knowledge of ocean, if my child is able to create something new out of it, then these thoughts go and settle in the Kubera's direction. Okay. Clear? I hope I'm making sense to everybody. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Now let's go to Agni. Agni is what? Our mind is related to the Agni Tattva, right? Our mind is always burning like the Agni. It is always like the plasma state, right? So conscious thoughts, whenever you have conscious thoughts about anything, they go and settle in the direction of the Agni. Then the Yama. Now, Yama is very, very important. Many thought patterns are not useful for us. For example, if I have to get rid of the habit of smoking, then I have to collapse a particular kind of thought pattern, right? If I'm only giving my child sensorial learning, if I'm giving creativity, but I'm not teaching my child how to collapse, how to end, how to destroy certain thought patterns, then that learning is incomplete. If the child has to get rid of a habit, or if the child has to transform something, then Yama becomes very essential for us, and he is holding strong in the south. All these collapsing thought patterns, transforming thought patterns go and settle down in the south. Niriti or Rakshasa. Now, this is the direction, I think it is the southwest, is where the rigidity comes from. Now, this rigidity is not, these are essential rigidities in life. Like we have essential symmetries and asymmetries, these are rigidities which are essential for our life. If I'm going and standing close to a cooker and my hand is touching it, then there should be a rigid thought pattern that always have to escape from that scene, right? I cannot keep my hand happily there and be flexible. Oh, let's wait what happens. Let's see whether it burns or not. That is not something given to me. Instinctively, I should take my hand out. Or if a lion is running behind me, that is not the time to be creative and think of different solutions. When a lion is chasing me, just run, right? This is the rigidity that we are talking about. Essential rigidities that help us live our life is what the Rakshasa does for us. So they are also a big part of our being, but we should know which should be the rigidities and which thought patterns should not become rigid in us, right? So that is wisdom. Then we have Varuna. Varuna is the water, the emotion, the pranic flow. Our emotions carry the thoughts to the mind, right? So if I have to make a mandala, then there has to be a flow to it. It will not make sense if it is very random. There has to be a proper flow which makes sense to me. That is given by the Varuna, the power of Varuna. And it is our emotions which stick all these thought patterns together. Imagine you make a beautiful mandala, but all these thoughts are not stuck together, then there is a high scope that all of them might just vanish. Whatever made sense to me today may not make sense to me tomorrow. This emotion is the glue that keeps all these thoughts connected together, stuck to each other. And that's why emotions become very important. When we talk about emotional learning, it is this glue that we are talking about that keeps us all coherent. Then the Vayu. Vayu is my active subconscious. This is the part which we talked about before, the subconscious, the operating mind, the operating system of me. This is the one that helps me run my life day in and day out. This is handled by our Vayu because subconscious is Vayu Tattva, right? If you have attended Dakshina, you will know that subconscious is the Vayu Tattva. So this completes the entire mandala of the mind. And when holistic learning is given to a child, an experience, for it to become holistic, we have to cover each one of these directions. Any activity that you design has to cover all of them. Otherwise, the mandala is incomplete. The child will look for completeness. And when the child looks for completeness, it might look for any other sources, right? But as an educator, we can empower ourselves to design activities that can fit into each of these places and give a complete experience for our child. Okay? Got it? Getting it? Understanding? Making sense? Okay, now it is time to brag about myself. Okay, I've created some awesome activities. Don't you all agree with me? And when you remember that page, that slide that we saw, that knowledge, learning, experience thing, that knowledge becomes very essential. Now, when we are looking for schools, right, you should always keep in mind what knowledge is this school working on. What is the knowledge with which the activities are designed? What is the knowledge with which the methodology has emerged? Right? That becomes very essential for parents to keep it in mind. If you're looking for a school, if you're looking for a curriculum, if you're looking for any methodology, keep in mind this knowledge, because that is the base using which the experiences will be given to the child. using which the activities will be designed, using which the textbooks will be given to the child. So what is that knowledge that you would want your child to gain? Is a question that all of you must ask yourself. Okay. So after the mind, what do we have? Yeah, so talking about Deeptima's activities, okay? Let's take Samudra Taranga. I'm just joking, okay? How this particular Nyaya was taught to the children in our Gurukula. What were the activities designed? Now, I want all of you to guess, not guess, rather tell me what intelligence was used or which deity was used, whether it was sensorial learning or whether it was related to active subconscious. So all of that I'm expecting from your chat. Okay. So first we started with understanding. Okay, first of all, let's understand what is Samudra Taranga Nyaya. Samudra Taranga Nyaya is a rule. Nyaya is basically a rule, right? It talks about there are countless waves in the ocean. But when we look at an ocean, every wave is distinct from the other. All these waves emerge from the same ocean. They are all composed of the same components, but each wave is distinct from the ocean, right? Just like all of us, we are all born out of the same 5 elements, the same tattvas, we have the same koshas, we all have that universal mother, but yet each one of us is distinct. Sujichi is different from Sangeeta ji. Shefalima is different from Archanama. But that Kanaka Kundala Nyaya again, very similar to that. We all have the same gold. We are all born out of the same ocean of knowledge. That is Samudra Taranga Nyaya. Now, how do you explain it to the child? So first of all, we understood what really are waves. When are waves created? You throw a pebble in a bucket of water, ripples come. Aren't they waves? When you take a thread and do this, it is tied on the other end, there are waves created. So first of all, it is a wave. Yes, Shilpaji. Disturbance with a pebble, when you look at it, it becomes disturbance. But for our understanding, these are waves. They are not disturbances for us, but they are waves that go up and down, which have particular amplitude. They have a frequency, they have a wavelength, all of that. Okay. So first of all, we understood how waves are generated. And now for this activity, we did keep a boat in the center of a tub and throw a pebble. Ripples are created. What happens to that boat? It starts moving up and down, right? So now you guys can tell me what was the intelligence used? Which Devata did come into picture here? Match the following. Yeah, somebody says rhythmic intelligence. Yes, waves have a rhythm. So there is rhythmic intelligence. So Sun, Surya Bhagavan, yes. What else? I can't see the other screen. Yes. Everybody's camera is off. On the other side. Varuna, yes, because there was water there. There was Varuna in play, Varuna in action. Transformation, yes, from stillness of water, there was transformation. What about sensorial learning? Was there sensorial learning here? Yes. There was. Moon. Moon was there. Okay, let's move on to this is something that you can do at home also. Okay, take any activity and then decode what all has been done. Okay, next we'll see what other activity was there. And each activity could have multiple intelligences. Each activity could be associated with multiple devatas. Okay, so that we have to be clear with. Then we gave them an activity of making a jal tarang. You know what is a jal tarang, right? You have bowls of water, different levels of water, and you hit with a stick, there is a sound produced. What is the sound produced? That is a wave. And when you hit a bowl hard, you see the ripples that are created in the water also. Don't we see that? So that is where wave is created. And to explain the concept of how sound is transmitted from water to my ear, we can see in the water that there is sound, there is wave. That means there is noise, there is vibration. And this vibration reaches the air, which is between you and me. In the air also, there are vibrations which are not visible to my eye, but they will be there. And this is that wave that reaches my ear. And this is the wave that my eardrum can take. Okay. So this is the understanding we are trying to give the child using Jal Tarang. Basically, how sounds work. And this is the base for teaching the child when we talk about phonics, phonetics, reading with sounds. This is the base with which that entire concept of learning alphabet is given to the child. How sound is produced. Okay. So now, yes, somebody mentioned rhythmic intelligence. Which other intelligence is coming into action here? Indra, sensorial, yes. There is kinetic intelligence here. There is a lot of action that is happening, right? There is science, isn't it? There is science of sound. So we have Shukra coming in, Varuna again, yes, because there is water. Saturn, yes, sequence with discipline. There is a discipline with which the vibrations happen. Awesome, good. Now you should make a note of what is not covered also, okay? Shabdha, yes, Shabdha is there. Sound is Shabdha. Let's see which is the next activity we have. Next was one wonderful activity. I love this, okay? So if you see the stadium waves, the Mexican wave that comes in football stadiums, that is also a wave, right? It goes up and down and up and down. This was a very kinetic activity that we gave children. Create waves, as many waves as you want, as many types as you want. Use the people in your family, use your friends, use your hands, use your body, and generate waves. What all kind of waves can you generate? So here, which intelligence is coming? Which graha is coming? Which devata is coming? Mangala, definitely Mangala. Kinesthetic intelligence is in big time play here. That is the dominating. It was meant for a kinetic activity itself. So that was the dominating Indra. Yes, there is sensorial learning too. Shani, discipline. Yes, there has to be a discipline. Otherwise, a wave is not formed. A good communication is essential. Rahu comes into play here. Otherwise, you stand up and the other person is not even responding to you. Not happening. Introspection comes in all of them. Unless and until you think what can be done, nothing of these can be executed. And then we have, this was what me and Prakrit did, my son Prakrit. We drew how the waves are formed. Okay. He saw that waves are generated like this and eventually they fall. They don't continue forever. There could be various reasons why they damp down. And most of the waves are damping waves only, right? So transformations happen. There has to be an end. Yama will come into play. And we learned this using musical instruments also. We made that cute little guitar. If you see, if you vibrate the strings, then you can see the vibration of the strings and the sound that the vibration makes. That was an activity which we did to understand the waves. And using this, we learned various types of musical instruments, whether it is a string instrument like guitar or veena or violin, sitar, etc. If sound could be produced using vibrations of the string, then which other ways can the sound be produced? There was percussion instruments. When you play a tabla, what is vibrating there? If sound has to be produced, then something has to vibrate. So what is vibrating when you play a tabla? The skin, the so-called leather that is there, that has to vibrate, only then sound is produced. And if sound is produced by vibration, then when I'm talking, there is sound. That means there has to be a vibration hidden somewhere, right? And this has provoked him. You know what is the question he asks me a few days back? Amma, dogs have teeth, dogs have tongue, they have a mouth, but they can't speak like we do. Why is that? You know, that is one question. Second question, okay, he somehow, I don't know what went on his mind. He decided that they are not human beings. Then he went to babies. We went to one of our friend's house, and that baby was talking, who was 2 years, but not proper words. There was no grammar, there was no construction of a sentence. So he's like, babies are human beings. They have mouth, they have tongue, they have teeth, but they still cannot talk. So what is it that makes a human being talk then? You know, this is the question that my child is asking all with all these activities, and I love the questions that children ask. If we are able to give questions to children, then nothing like it. Then the last in this slide that I have taken is, when we talk about musical instruments, who are we talking about? It's Ma Saraswati. Without her, no instruments exist. So this is my connection to my passive subconscious. So we talked about all the instruments that our Devatas can play. What does Lord Shiva play? What does Lord Vishnu play? What does Hanuman play? What does Ravana play? All of these characters play musical instruments. And this is my subconscious connect to the universe also. Right? So did we cover most of the intelligences here? Was anything missed? Yay, Deeptima has done a good job, right? So this is the knowledge with which we design activities. And I think we will pause the session here today. If you have any questions, then this is a good time to ask questions. And if you're looking for any school, or if you are designing activities for your child, if you are looking at giving holistic experiences, experiential based learning to your child, please keep this in your mind. And always remember that your child is connected to your mind. They don't have thoughts of your own. The kind of thoughts you have, how clear your screen is the clarity that you will find in your child's mind. Okay, if there is a crack on your screen, then do not expect that your child is clear. That is not going to happen. They might have their own energy, they might have their own life energy. Even though the mobile is tested using the screen of the computer, it still has its own battery. It still has working, it works using its own battery and energy, right? So same way, the life force of the child, the prana of the child is independent of the parent, but the mind is completely entangled. If you can think better, the child can think better. If you can have reasonable thoughts, the child will do that. And if you have any complaints, you know whom to blame also. Okay? Any questions, any thoughts? You can raise your hand. Vidyama, probably you can coordinate that. You can type in your questions also. Kubera for creativity. Okay, so Kubera for creativity, Richaji, how it was incorporated was, when Jalatarang is given, the child gets to play the musical instrument, and it can be as creative as it wants with the kind of rhythms and sounds that it can make. So that's where the creativity comes into play. Okay, and it can create different types of waves also. When it is when we are creating the Mexican waves, or when you're drawing waves on the book, you can be as creative as you want. Thank you, Alkaji. So I think we don't have any questions as such. That's awesome. Okay, so the narration for any activity, a child is able to process the information at whatever age. I didn't get your question, Sangeeta ji. I could not understand.
Yeah, let me ask it.
Please tell me.
Yes. Shivam Vidyama. My question is regarding I was a part of the Navratri also.
Okay.
And the activity that you just mentioned about Jal Tarang Nyaya.
Correct.
Samudra Taranga Nyaya.
Samudra Taranga Nyaya.
So the whole narration or whole learning associated to the activity, is there an age when the child understands the whole narrative, or each with each repetition the learning would be different? I do understand that the understanding of with each repetition, and as the child grows, his learning would definitely enhance. But is there certain narrative that needs to be given at certain age, or uh,
Yes, I think what you're talking about is what needs to be taught at what age, right? Is that what
yes, yes,
your
yes,
question
yes.
is about? Yes, I think to understand that is why we took up the entire conscious mind construct of a child. When the child's mind is being built during this age, that 3 to 6 years of age, right? We should understand what are the things that are already built before, what is it that the child is developing now, what is it that the child wants to learn, what is the spirit of the child that it is seeking, right? So in this age, we have taken this concept. What we are doing over Bala Navami is talking about the conscious mind development of the child. Okay, and at different ages it is different learning. For example, when you go to infancy, they are only learning about rules and codes and operating system, right? That's where the subconscious learning is in play. So subconscious teaching is very different from a conscious mind teaching. So the methodology there, the techniques there, the props, activities there are going to be very different from the ones that are going to be there in early childhood. Okay, in this session we are mainly focused towards conscious mind development and activities for conscious mind development of the child. Okay, that comes into play after infancy. So as soon as the child finishes its infancy stage is when conscious mind starts developing, and hence so much importance is given to psychology in this age. When they go into teenage, they could be learning something else. That time their mind is already built. Then what is it that they need at that time? What is the spirit seeking for? So all of this is part of, if you join our advanced courses, right, of educator training courses, Gurukulam science courses, is when you'll get understanding of the development stages of a child's life. Can't we do subconscious learning in early childhood? Of course, subconscious learning can be done at any age group, but it is most effective when you do it in the early child, in the infancy or the pregnancy. Okay, that's when almost 95, Sanjana ji, 1 second, will come to you. Almost 95% development is done by the time the child reaches early childhood. So when the subconscious is being created, when it is being coded, is when it is most effective. The techniques change, the methodologies change, the intensity changes with which subconscious learning has to be done in future. Okay. Yes, Sanjana ji, you go ahead and ask your question, then we'll take up the next question.
Yeah, so I understood the concept of dynamic learning from all perspectives. But before that, you shared a chart with directions. So how are both of these interconnected?
Directions, these are the directions of the mind. Like how our house has got east, west, north, south direction, our mind too has got directions like that. So if you are giving sensorial learning, then that learning happens in the north of the mind. Those thought patterns are generated in the north of the mind. When we are talking about collapsing thought patterns, that is when your transformations are happening, when the thought patterns are coming to an end, is the south of the mind. This is the part of the mind where this kind of learning happens, this kind of thoughts are generated. If you want to kill a habit, then you should focus on the yama kind of thoughts, the south of the mind. That's how they are related. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, so the first chart described the construct and the capability of the mind. The second one was kind of a more practical view for us while designing an experience.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah, Sindhuji, Deeptima, sometimes we have to create more of the same topic and all the details have to be covered. It is up to you, Sindhuji, whether you want to do it in one time. Sometimes one single activity can cover multiple intelligences. Sometimes you have to create probably 20 activities to give the holistic perspective, right? It is really up to you. and the learning potential of the child. Just one activity can give the child the holistic perspective if the learning potential is high enough. Okay, given a stone, the child can learn all these thought patterns, all these intelligences, everything, if the learning potential is available for the child. Okay, Sindhuji? And it is your creativity. Okay, ultimately it comes to the creativity of the educator or parent. The child is looking for, why did you create this activity? How did you get this? How did you arrive at this? What is the thinking pattern that you use? The end product is just the activity, that is just an expression. What really matters is what all thoughts have you used. You remember that rainbow of thoughts, the lokas and tadas, and the 11 types of thinking processes. So which all of that have you used is what the child gets ultimately. And that is why we are doing these sessions, because children will learn that from the parents, isn't it? They are connected to your minds. So the better your thinking is, the better your thought patterns are, more the rainbow that you cover, your child gets all of that. Versus giving activities that are ready-made. Can you compare that? Are you able to appreciate why we are doing empowerment sessions for parents? Okay, awesome. My child is 2 years old, so if I take courses, I will be able to contribute to his learning. Jeevika ji, which courses are you talking about?
Hello. Yeah. So I'm completely new to this concept, and this is the initial session that I'm going through.
Okay.
So I've seen the website, and just now I'm just doing all these researches for him. So if I take the initial stage in that website, it is given as 2 to 6 years. There are given packages and other things, and though the concept is very much new and overwhelming for me, so I have to start from maybe I'm right now in an LKG stage. I have to grasp so much more. So I'm just asking how to start and how to proceed with that.
So Jeevika ji, there is Vidyama, who is the facilitator. You can get in touch with Vidyama. She can guide you with what you should start with, or what is it that will be suitable for you. Definitely there are different courses that we offer. The first, you have started with this. I know it is a little overwhelming because we took up a lot of concepts today, the tattvas, the koshas, and the mind development, the psychology, and all of that. But I will assure you that over these 9 days, you will feel a little bit of relaxation. You will get in tune. So I think I would definitely suggest that you start with this course. This is part of all our Gurukulam courses also. Most of the parents you see here are part of the Gurukulam, and they're going through this course because they will be designing activities for their children. So you can start with this, is my suggestion. There is Vidyama, there is also Anitji, so they can help you out with further guidance. Okay.
And one more doubt. Since as you said, there are so much of learning, and everything is happening in a preconception stage, and all the it's all said and done, and it seems to be something wondering am I started very late or something? So
I think this is the most common question. Everybody, you see the laughing faces on the screen. This is the question that has struck everybody at least once in their lifetime. Sujit ji included. I remember Sujit ji's questions always, but it is never too late. And consciousness studies, Gurukulam sciences are such that they work with the heart. I did not cover in detail that aspect, but they are applicable at any point in time. Even if you're 70 years old, it is never too late to start learning these consciousness studies. Okay, I think Anitji has shared the link, and it is never ever too late. Okay,
thank you.
Shivohama, I have a question.
Yes, Suhasini ji.
So when we are designing all these activities, so do we let the kid observe and then interpret for himself, raise questions, and understand by himself, explore, or do we kind of push a little bit?
Okay, Suhasini ji, this question will take up later. Okay, this is too early for this. Once we go into a little more depth and little more designing aspect of it, observation aspect of it, we'll go to this question.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So I just want to give a sneak peek of what is going to come up in the next 9 days, so that you are aware of it and you can hold on some of your questions probably. Okay. So tomorrow what we are going to see is guidelines that NCERT is giving. If you see what NCERT is giving, it does cover most of these dimensions of the mind. Some of them are missing, but it does a very good job in its early childhood guidelines. So we will be taking up those guidelines tomorrow, and we'll be giving you a framework of how you can start designing an activity. So where do you begin? How do you design? How do you conclude? What observations to make? What sort of questions to ask your child? What are the things that you have to note down? What are the improvements? So all of these guidelines we will go through tomorrow. Okay, and after that we have 9 themes. That's why it's called Bala Navami. Why these? We'll have an introduction of each of these themes tomorrow, but from day 3 onwards we'll take up each of these themes one by one and design activities so that we give a holistic perspective to the child. So you'll be trained to design activities on your own, how to incorporate each of these grahas, each of these intelligences, each of these dimensions. All of that we'll do for each of these themes over the next 8 days starting from day 3. Okay, and on day 10, I assure you, I guarantee that each one of you will come up with your own activities, your own themes, your own everything. So day 10 will be dedicated towards all your questions, all your doubts, all your experiences, your experiments. All of that will be on day 10, where we discuss what you have come up with, and I will give you feedback, or I can give you corrections, or I can say a well done, whatever it is, to all of you based on what you have done. So there will be small assignments for you to do as well, so that there is a practice, right? There's no point when you learn everything and do not apply it. So application, we'll keep it for day 10. All right. So that is in brief. I think somebody had asked that question also in the group. So this is the gist of what is coming up over the next 10 days. And when we take up themes, we understand why we are taking up those themes. And let's say my body. I think I gave this example before. When I talk about my body, every preschool, everybody in this world teaches about my body. But why are we learning about my body? Just because I learn about my body, does my kidney start working better? Or, do I start hearing better if I learn about my body? What is the reason that we study about my body, and why do we teach it to a child in its early childhood? So each of these topics will take up. When we talk about my family, why my family? When we talk about animals, what importance? Animals are there. They are not doing anything to us. We are not doing anything to them. Why should we study about the animals? Right? When we study biology, why do we study biology? So, and how does it affect me, my holistic construct, is what we'll take up on all these 9-10 days. Okay. I think Vidyaji and Anitji have written down their phone numbers, and there is a WhatsApp group which you can join for your further questions. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for coming in, everybody. And I had lots of fun. And I hope all of you are empowered by the end of 10 days. You can design the best activities for your child, and you can, at least you have the proper knowledge with which you can choose schools for your child. So that, at least, I hope really happens over these 9-10 days. So let's conclude with a prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Happy Rajotsava. Vidyama, if you have to say something, you can conclude the session, Vidyama.